Okay, well, I got stuff so far anyhow. Yeah, all right. And I got my stuff for recreation that Steve gave to me.
Okay, good.
So the only one I don't have. What's that, honey?
We're waiting for Gary to join. And then we have to do a lot of reading of, you know, all the stuff that the governor wants us to read.
Okay, yep.
Advising about public meeting and
yep.
And then we'll go into, and I do see that Lauren Walk is here from the Cultural Center. So then once we've gone through the preliminaries, I'll promote her and ask her to present the application, or Gary will.
Okay, all right, sounds good. So is everybody there? No?
Not yet.
Okay, that'll give me a minute to look for town hall. Is it I'm looking for?
Oh, right. Cultural Center.
Oh, I thought I have that, I think. That's us. Oh yeah, the color. Here's my front page I was looking for. Okay, this one is the color. Yep, center, cemetery, and what was the other one? Cemetery. And town records.
Town records, yep.
Yeah. Well, until everybody gets here, I'm gonna look for the town records real quick. Huh. Of course, Mary's gonna think I'm an idiot here, but this is new. Huh. Is open space, is that part of our recreation?
Well, recreation doesn't really have its own category anymore. So it kind of gets paralleled with open space. But there's also a bucket of undesignated funds.
Okay. Well, I just know before Jeff Colby came on board, and the splash pad came up, but the splash pad was put on hold from the recreation department before Jeff took over.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I knew that.
No, they didn't. Steve Sinansky told me that. And I have a meeting tonight at 6. But then again, I don't know if Dorcas sent a letter out or not. She's chairperson, but I haven't gotten a hold of her yet. Well, I tried to, but with her bus route, it's a little hard. But I just want them to know that, unless I have proof.
Well, there's Gary.
Oh.
Hey, Gary, try unmuting yourself now.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Can you hear this?
I can hear. It doesn't sound like Gary, though.
Hey, can you promote him, please? To a panelist?
There you go. You're a panelist now, Gary. You're a panelist. You can unmute yourself. Hi, Gary.
Yo, how you doing?
Good.
Oh.
I get a different computer every time. They're all different. All right. If everybody can hear me,
yes.
Take a roll call vote so we can open the meeting. It's 3:05. Gary Ellis here. Debbie Clark, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you.
George Slammer. Saw you say hi, but I didn't hear him. Christine.
I'm here.
Christine.
Here.
Paul.
Here.
Liz.
Present.
And Nate, you're here.
Here.
Okay. Go ahead and open the meeting. So with a quorum present, I will now call the meeting to order. I will ask the moderator to explain how the remote participation will work before proceeding. Don?
Dawn, you're muted.
Thank you. To reduce the spread of coronavirus, all town buildings are closed to the public, and the December 9, 2020 Community Preservation Committee meeting will be held by remote participation. My name is Dawn Marie Foote, CPA Program Coordinator, and I'll be serving as moderator for this virtual meeting. Although no in-person attendance will be permitted, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings. Persons who would like to view or listen to the meeting while in progress may do so by watching via this virtual meeting or dialing into the number provided on the notice of the meeting. We will also post a recording of this meeting on the Town of Yarmouth website as soon as we're able. Please be patient as we work to overcome any technological challenges with the virtual meeting. For all meetings, to reduce confusion during the meeting, all audience participants enter the meeting muted. Participants will be able to unmute themselves when called upon to speak by the chair or moderator. If you are not speaking, please mute yourself to avoid unnecessary background noise. All votes must be roll call votes. After a motion is made and there is a second, the chair will ask for a roll call vote. For public participation, comments or questions from the public will be taken at the discretion of the chair. Members of the public may speak by selecting the raise hand button and waiting for the chair to call on them to speak. If you are dialed in on the phone number provided, you can press *9 on your phone to indicate that you would like to comment. Members of the public recognized by the chair are asked to identify themselves by first and last name and affiliation for the public record, and then to provide their comment each and every time they speak. And I'll now hand it back to Gary.
Okay. So on our agenda, first we had the Cultural Center. Lauren's not here yet, correct?
Yeah, Lauren
Yep,
is
she
here.
is.
Can you unmute yourself, Lauren? There you go.
I'm here.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
Lauren.
Hi.
Welcome to the meeting. You're up first, so it's usual if you want to go ahead and describe your project for the Cultural Center, what you're hoping to do, and all that, and then all our panelists are here. If we have any questions, we will let you know. So
Okay.
Feel free to go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being here. Our request is very straightforward, and therefore the narrative is brief. We are requesting support to help with 3 aspects of a project involving preservation of the old Bass River Savings Bank building that we occupy. The 3 parts of our request are for essential repairs to the flat portions of the roof, which have been compromised and are leaking, causing interior damage and threatening the structure of the building and the artwork exhibited in its galleries, potentially leading to mold. The second is the replacement of 3 exterior doors, 2 of which have been repeatedly repaired and must now be replaced to make them safe, functional, and historically accurate. And the third is professional painting to preserve exterior woodwork, trim, balusters, and shutters. All 3 improvements will improve the operation and appearance of an historically important resource in the community and will enhance the experience of visitors to the site. Although we have no images of the original exterior door on Old Main Street, and believe me when I say we searched, we have been searching for years for that, we will do our best to replace the current door with one that is far more historically appropriate than the current door. The total that we are asking for is up to $102,000, $102,327. We have requested half of that amount from the Dennis CPC. Their dates are a little different from yours, so we will find out after we have heard from you whether Dennis is going to fund half of this project. That's why we said up to $102,327. We have included quotes, at least a couple, for 2 of the aspects of this project. We were unable to get more than 1 quote for the doors, although we had 3 vendors come and look. 2 of them were not interested in the job. One of them, Davenport, with whom we've worked many times, was interested and provided us with a reasonable quote, which we've attached to our proposal. Of the 2 quotes for the roofing, we would go with Gazal, which has a more straightforward approach to the repairs and is cheaper. And for the painting, again, we would go with Stewart, which is a more reasonable quote and is a very professional organization, and presented us with a very detailed plan for how they would preserve our exterior. I should let you know, anticipating this question, we don't regard any of this as maintenance, because we have spent over $300,000 in the last 14 years on maintenance alone for this building, as well as raised money to make considerable improvements to the building in order to preserve it and to make the experience of our patrons safe and enjoyable, including most recently touchless faucets. So we have worked very, very hard to maintain our facility, to improve our facility, but these are 3 projects that we simply cannot tackle on our own, especially given the major financial hit we have experienced in the last several months due to COVID. We have spent down many resources which we might otherwise have spent on at least some of these projects, but we're in a position now where we have to make these improvements in order to preserve our building, and we respectfully request your assistance.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Anybody have any questions for Lauren? Anybody? Paul? Paul, do you have a question?
Oh, no, I don't. Thank you, Gary. It's hard to hear you, though.
Yeah.
The microphone doesn't work well on this computer.
Thank you.
I'll try to talk louder. Anybody else have any questions of Lauren about this? Christine.
Hi, Lauren, and thank you for coming today. On our application, repairs and maintenance are not included for CPA funds. If you're doing restoration work or renovation, that might be considered, but certainly not repairs and maintenance. And painting is included as maintenance work. As we speak, the Bangs Hallett House is being painted, and they have not, asked for funds because it's a part of maintenance. You have roofs, you have doors. You're replacing the doors instead of restoring them?
We have one of them on the Union Street side. We have restored and repaired many, many times over the years in an effort to make it both functional and historically accurate. It's at the point now where it is very hard for people to open it. It's very, very heavy door. It's just pretty much beyond repair at this point. The front door on Old Main Street was not the original door. It's a retail storefront type of door, which is wildly inaccurate for the building. Mm-hmm. And as I said, we have pictures of the building, but in every single case, these historic pictures show the door open. So we cannot see what it looks like. And we've really searched, but we will do our best to replace it with a door that is period accurate and suits the style of the building. Finally, there's a door at the back of the building, the original door, I believe. Actually, I'm not sure it's the original door. I think it is, but it has modern improvements for safety to bring it up to code, like a push bar on the inside. And it is at the back stairs leading down to the lower level of the main building. And it is rotting and almost inoperable. It'll soon be inoperable. So those are, the serious needs. We did not include in this any further improvements. This is just to make things as functional as we can and historically accurate, since this is a site listed on the national and state historic registers.
Right.
But to your point about painting, we have painted and painted and painted and painted over the years. This is going to require more extensive work to preserve the woodwork and then paint it, which calls for a professional. And I understand that you could see this as a maintenance issue, but we're hoping you'll see it as a preservation issue, because without this work, the building will suffer. And we're just beyond our resources.
Thanks, Howard House, they find, you know, rotted boards and everything else, and that's still considered repairs and maintenance. Also on page 3, you indicated that you had to use some of your funds to be reallocated for staffing expenses. You know, that doesn't necessarily mean that that would make them qualify for CPA reimbursement. We'll take a good hard look at your application, Lauren.
Thank you.
George, you have a question?
Yes. Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
Lauren, would you be able to send along some photos or drawings of the doors that you're considering?
New doors? The new doors we're considering using instead of?
Yes.
Okay.
Because
okay. I'm not sure that I'm just looking here for the Davenport quote. If you give me 10 seconds, I'll ask Bob if he ever received anything. I can tell you that the door on the old Main Street side, we had a long meeting with the Historical Commission about how to obtain a door that would be historically accurate. And they suggested going to an architectural remnants supply place, like the one in New Bedford, and there's one in Maine, and finding a door. The problem is fit. And actually, Bob is right here. So let me ask him, did we receive any images of the replacement doors that Davenport's proposing?
The Union Street.
Why don't you come around here and tell them yourself? Bob Nash, our executive director.
Hey, Bob.
Hey there. Can you see?
I need a mask now.
So the Union Street door and also the door at the back of the building will remain the same. The Union Street door is essentially historic, at least dating back to the 1950s when they added the wings. The Main Street door, from the best we can tell, there are 2 French-style doors with 15 lights just on the inside of that foyer. And the hinge marks are still in place on the outside part. You can still see where the hinges for those doors were. And it appears that they were double French doors as well. At that time, they opened in, which is not possible today. But I would like to see 2 15 light French doors to mirror the doors that are on the inner part of that foyer. And although Lauren, I believe, told you we've searched and searched and we can't find an image of the bank that shows those doors, I think it's a pretty good guess that that's what they were.
Thanks, Bob. This is George again, and
George.
So the Historical Commission would want to revisit, you know, the doors, obviously, and so that you know, the committee can approve it or make suggestions again. So that's why I'm asking, you know, just for the photos and for whatever you can provide, because this will have to come before the Historic Commission.
Sure. Yep.
Bob, I think I found the photo with the 2 doors that you were referring to. I'm going to share my screen.
It's probably screen doors. There's one that shows the screen doors. Yeah.
Hold on just a second. I'm sorry. Hold on. Right there. Can you guys see that?
No.
I see your inbox for your email.
Oh, my goodness. Why won't it go? Hold on. Stop sharing. Unless you want to see my town email. Sorry, excuse me. That's open. I apologize. Let me see if I can do it one more time. That's not appropriate. So, okay, here we go. There we go. Is that better?
Yeah, that's the same one we have. Those are the screen doors on the outside, which further suggests that the inner doors were French doors.
Yeah.
Well, they were double doors. Anyway.
Or double, yeah.
Does that help, George?
Yes. I mean, we'll have to have the separate meeting with, you know, everything that you're thinking of using, and so that we can weigh in on it also.
Sure.
If you want to come by at some point, George, you can actually see where those doors were installed back in the day when they opened in, and you'll see the doors right behind them. I think the doors right behind them tell a story in and of themselves. You wouldn't put fully lighted doors from the bottom up on the inside and then have solid doors on the outside. So it's an assumption, but it's a pretty good one that they mirrored each other.
And that's a good suggestion, Bob, and I'll do that. We have a CPA meeting tomorrow. This would go on the agenda for next month, which is the second Thursday. So I'll be in touch and come down and do the research on your end for the commission meeting, and we can talk some more.
You know, since I've been involved here, I've asked everyone, we've even put it in our newsletters, does anybody have any pictures of the old Bass River Savings Bank that we could use for reference? And not a one has ever come forward. The only images we've ever found is the one that Liz just found. And there's one more, it's a vertical shot of a sea captain walking out the front door.
Bob, that one does show, I'm looking at it right now, that one does actually show, it looks like 3 across. If I can share my screen one more time. You can actually see that it matches the, just as an FYI, and George, you also have, this is your bailiwick, George, not mine, but I'm looking at it.
Let me tell you what you're looking at here. Unfortunately, those exterior doors, all you're seeing is the profile. If you look further in on the left-hand side, those are the French doors that still exist there today.
Yeah, they're the interior.
Yes. I've had
anything else. Yeah.
No, trust me, Liz. We've spent many hours on eBay and
every
historic site we can find, and with neighbors who have loads of pictures of the area, but none but what you see here.
Interesting. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions?
Chairman, this is Nate. I have a couple questions. Thank you, Lauren and Bob. I always love working with you guys. You do amazing work over there, but I have 2 questions. I don't see anything in reference in the application about any matching funds or any kind of fundraising. Is there anything you can shed light on that?
Well, I can tell you that the matching funds we hope would come from the Dennis CPA. We've applied for half the amount from them, but as far as non-CPA funds, I can take this off now. We do continuous fundraising, and we have applied. We have a grant right now, and that's being considered not for this, but for other improvements like a new sign and a new ventilation system with UV lighting and all kinds of other things. But for these specific projects, we have not yet identified a matching source for funds, but we're always looking. And if it turned out that we had to come up with a match other than the Dennis CPA, we would certainly do our best, and I have every confidence we'd be able to procure that money. But I just want to remind you that given what we've just been through for the year, it would be great that all fundraising for the foreseeable future could be focused on just keeping the lights and the heat on and the doors open to serve the community. We have taken an enormous hit, and people have been very generous, but our earned revenue is down about 78%. So it's going to be an uphill climb coming back from this. We will, and we're going to survive it for sure. But we would really hope to be able to devote our fundraising efforts for the next year or two to bringing us back to where we were.
Excellent point taken. And then the next thing is just kind of a housekeeping issue. And usually I don't kind of bring these things up till we meet to discuss it, but it's a pretty big factor. It seems like in your breakdown in price, you've got the roof repairs at $76,000, but that's actually the Bennett estimate, and the Cazalt, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you said you were going to go with, that's $16,000 less.
We hope to go with Cazalt, yes.
Let me explain.
Sit down, Bob.
The difference was in their approach, the two companies' approach to dealing with the roof. When the roof was originally done, oops, sorry, the balustrades that go around the roof were an obstacle. And because it's a rubber membrane roof, wherever the balustrades penetrate the roof, the roofing had to be flashed around it. And they didn't do a very good job of that. So Bennett suggested removing the balustrades, which would be a monumental task and a huge expense. When Cazalt looked at the job, he said, no, we can just remove that bottom board, which is probably about 10 inches high, that goes along the bottom of the balustrade, and replace it with AZACs after the fact. But while that board is off, it would allow them access to those penetrations that could be flashed properly. So that factored in a considerably lower price.
But to your question, the reason I put in the higher amount is because we're asking for up to that amount. And because there was a great difference between the two approaches, I was not comfortable assuming that one method would necessarily, once they get into it, work. If they end up having to remove the balusters, it's going to go up. The price is going to go up accordingly. So our request really is up to $102,000. If we're able to go with the less expensive method that Bob just described, then obviously we would not ask for the higher amount.
Great, thank you for the clarification. That's all I have. Thanks again.
Sure.
I just have a question, Lauren, just to be clear, in your request to Dennis, it was for half of the 102?
Correct.
So
I wrote to them first explaining what our request would be, asking if it would be eligible because we are on Yarmouth, but also what we were requesting and whether we should apply. And they said yes, yes, and yes. So I did. And I have not yet heard about an opportunity to meet with them as I'm meeting with you right now, but their application deadline was a month past yours. So I assume we'll be doing that early in the new year. And hopefully we'll find out by February or so if they are inclined to support the project, at which point we will, of course, reduce our request to you accordingly.
It would still be the request that you made, but by the time we got to town meeting, we would know, correct?
Yeah, I consulted with Karen Green, who suggested I use the language up to that amount in case we get the Dennis funding.
Anybody else? Any more questions for Lauren? I guess Bob's there too.
He's in the background. Yeah, he's in his office, but certainly he can come back.
I agree with Nate. It's a great project. I'm glad we have it in Yarmouth, and we've always worked well in the past. We've got, as you can imagine, Lauren, with this pandemic, we have a lot of requests this year. So
of course,
we're trying to do everything we can to keep, places like you going, because it's to all of our benefit when we get by this. So
Yeah, you've
we
always
certainly
been.
appreciate what you do for the town of Yarmouth and what you've brought. So
Thank you. We really appreciate the support you've given us in the past and your consideration for this request as well. We understand there are a lot of people with needs. So thank you very much for your time and your attention.
yep, if we have any other questions as we go along, Don will get them to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thanks for being here.
Thanks,
Be well.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Take care. All right, Don, next is Pat here? Pat's not here, right?
I don't see Pat here yet, unless she's, Pat, are you here as a Town of Yarmouth Zoom host? I don't think so. Let's go with Mary Maslowski.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Let's go with Mary Maslowski, who is here, who's been waiting, and have her. Mary, whenever you want, you can describe your project, and you know, then anybody on our committee has any questions, we will let you know. So just as well as you can, describe what you're looking for.
Great, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. As you can see from our application, we presently have an abundance of documents in storage, and they are basically stored at multiple locations. We've got boxes at the old water department, at the senior center, in various vaults, and I suspect all of the various departments and town committees also have plenty of boxes that they are still looking for a safe way to store their documents. The challenge we have here in Yarmouth is twofold. First, we don't have a centralized management system or a standardized procedure for identifying, scanning, and preserving those documents and then managing the storage process. That's the piece that I'm hoping to at least start addressing with this application. The second part is that we need to be, our storage locations need to be in compliance with state archive guidelines. The old water department is not at this stage, but it is the best that we have in order to store those documents for now. So we do also have, through the finance department, a capital request to hopefully address that piece as well. So with this project, as I said, we're hoping that we can at least start to standardize this process townwide, which will also ensure the preservation and the proper management of the town documents. So as you can imagine, some of the documents are permanent records. Some may have various destruction schedules, but we believe that the process is appropriate for Community Preservation Act funds, as managing and indexing the documents is really essential to preserving the historic ones. The critical piece is that the original documents get preserved. And as you can imagine, we don't know today what documents will be historic. We will only know that in the future. So it's essential that the original documents get preserved and protected and stored in a way that they can be accessed in the future and minimally accessed so that they're not destroyed with extra fingerprints and extra oils and poor circulation or moisture or any of the rest of it. So what we need to do is ensure that those original documents are scanned in a way that allows access without needing to touch the actual document unless absolutely necessary. We also need to make sure that those documents are indexed in a way that not only the town documents, the town employees can access them, but the general public can access them in kind of a self-service manner. Second piece is that the proper storage is in a compliant location that will protect those original documents and also allow access to them when it's truly needed. So we may need that original picture at some point. The good part about this scanning project is that we can scan these documents in color and most accurately preserve them in a way that the public can access them without jeopardizing the original photographs or the original plans. Those can all be stored safely away until absolutely necessary. The way I see this process unfolding is that we have to identify what documents are currently in storage, what needs to be scanned, identify the appropriate destruction schedules for those documents. Now, some of these documents have been scanned and they're up on the town's Laserfiche. However, some of those that are already on Laserfiche probably need a second or a third look at them to be able to ensure that they're indexed in a way that we can search for them and the public can search for them, and the scanned document will pop up appropriately. Other documents will need to be scanned and properly indexed, both in a database, which allows them to be located electronically, and also where they're indexed for their physical location, so that we can find them at a future date when needed. Those documents then need to be stored in an identified box and in an identified location.
Okay.
So, all of this information hopefully will be indexed in a way that we can get this project started. My expectation is that we would put in standard procedures for all town committees and all town departments, so that everyone is following the same processes and procedures, and create that kind of full framework going forward. As far as the funding is concerned, we did receive 2 quotes, which we included in the application, that were done earlier this year. It appears, looked through the documents that we had and provided us figures. My expectation is that if we're fortunate enough to have funds from the CPA, then we would probably have an additional year and a half worth of documentation that would need to be included in the indexing and scanning and storage process. The expectation would be that if we're fortunate enough to receive the funds, we should be in a position to start the process next fall, I would say. And then most of the quotes that we've received are looking at a 52-week kind of initial process. So we would expect a year and a half to get kind of the first piece completed and the framework in place for going forward.
Okay. Thanks, Mary. Anybody have any questions or comments for Mary? Paul?
Yeah, just a couple quick questions. You noticed, or you mentioned, Mary, that right now there isn't any real process or organized procedure for this kind of records management. Is that correct?
So we don't have a centralized system. So departments will ask for documents to be scanned. They'll get scanned. They'll upload them on Laserfiche. From my understanding, each department may do it differently. And then my observation is down at the water department, some of those scanned documents just end up in a box that say scanned and thrown on a shelf in the water department. And ideally, those original documents should be reorganized and refiled, identified on the box. The box should be put in a location that can be found at a later date, so that we know what's there. Just having them scanned isn't really preserving the original documentation, which is really the heart of the whole project. Those original documents are what are historic and will be permanent records for the town, and should be accessed for future generations too.
I agree. And the other question I have is, I noticed that there are no alternate funding information filled out in the application. And maybe that's typical when the town is asking for funds, but is there any portion at all of the town budget that can be or will be applied to this project besides the CPA money that you're requesting?
So at this point, my understanding is that regular town funds are being used to do what scanning is kind of going on an ongoing basis. I have reached out to one of the town clerks that's on the State Historic Records Archiving Board for some information and for some resources. They do provide grants. So I have, now that election season is over, I have recently been in touch with her. So I will be getting more information from them in the hopes that there would be some additional grant funds available to manage this as well. I just don't know what is available to date. That is something that I've just started to look into. Additionally, the town finance department has put in for I believe a $600,000 request to retrofit the old water department so that it can be brought up into compliance with state archive guidelines. So that in looking at that building, in fact, it may be larger than the 600. I should have the number in front of me and I don't. That for that building to be fully compliant, it would need to meet all of the requirements of the State Archive Board. It would have to have all metal shelving, no wooden shelving. It would have to have vault, the equivalent of a vault door. It would have to be waterproofed and have the fire prevention systems located on site that are appropriate for state archiving. So that is a possibility. Now, one of these quotes, in particular the Iron Mountain one, does also provide an option that we could store documents offsite. That would be an ongoing charge for the town though. So there is, you know, that possibility as well for at least some of the documents.
Okay, one final question. So if we find ourselves in this town at this particular point regarding our records, is this because prior to this moment in time, there haven't been any regulations regarding the management of records, or has it simply been mismanagement?
So I wouldn't say it's mismanagement. I would say that we don't have enough space. I can tell you my vault space alone is small, and there are, I believe, 4 vaults within the town that are actually fully compliant locations. So those, there just isn't enough space presently available. And I don't think we're alone in that situation across the state. It's not unusual to see that happen. It's just going forward. You know, we would like to get ourselves compliant wherever possible. So, and certainly keeping in mind, you know, the use of town funds is sacrosanct. So we want to do it in the best way possible and the safest way possible to get us compliant, and at least preserve these documents that need to be preserved and secured for the future.
Well, thank you. You seem to have a really good plan, and it seems like you're really working diligently on this. So good luck.
Thank you.
Dean?
Hi, Mary. I had a question. Is this only going to be for town hall records, or and I'll tell you about a situation I had with the fire department. As part of the research for the Yankee Village site, I had to find out if there were any underground storage tanks on the site. When I went to the fire department, you know, I had to leave my request because they had to look at 3 different computers because they had upgraded computers several times, you know, to get a final answer. Is this going to be just for scanning paper records, or is it going to be storing and perhaps converting old computer records so that people can search those records as well?
So I'm not familiar with the computer systems at the fire department. I would say primarily this is about preserving the historic documents. The one thing I will say with underground storage tanks, that is kind of a whole different realm where you're talking about a 21E search. So there are reasons legally why you would want to have that search through the fire department. And the fire department is generally responsible for providing the records that they have on those available sites. They are the primary place that would host those records. But certainly the expectation is that this would be town-wide, not just town documents, but police department, fire department, elder services, whomever has the documents that they would be scanned in a similar way, that they would be stored and indexed in a similar manner, and would be, when I say indexed, both electronically and locally, so that those original documents can be found. You know, it could be planning board plans, it could be photos from the historic commission, it could be anything of that nature, as long as they can, the whole way that we can ensure that their original documents are preserved, the scanning helps, because it means the less number of times we have to touch that document, the better. So for example, in the town clerk's world, we now generate a lot of our vitals through a state system that generates them automatically. We still have a permanent birth record, a permanent death record that gets stored in our vault on acid-free paper and in a plastic sleeve, and it's stored away for historic purposes. But on a daily basis, when somebody asks for for a copy of a death certificate, that gets electronically generated whenever possible, so that we don't have to touch that original record. And it's pretty much the same concept going forward, just moving it out to the rest of the town documents.
Thank you very much.
Liz?
Thank you. Yeah, Mary, I definitely support this. I actually was hired in the town manager's office right after the flood of the water building that held all the records, ironically. So, you'll see a lot of my handwriting out there because I was the one who scanned and put everything in Laserfish and then boxed it. So Karen Green can probably attest, and Pat Armstrong probably remembers as well, how much of my life was spent in trying to preserve those records and scan them. So I am definitely in favor of scanning these and getting these documented, but I'm also in favor of making sure that there is something in place, that a system in place for all other documents and current documents being put into the system as well. I agree with Christine that this just needs to be a unified approach to this, and that, as you mentioned, you don't know what's going to be historic. So how is one department or one employee going to determine if that is historic value for 50 years down the road or not? So I think that you just need to make sure that that's approachable. And then also, once you're storing it, try to get rid of those paper cardboard boxes, because it's not, as you know, it's not going to help with the life of preservation of those documents in the future. So that's really all I have to say on that.
Thank you.
Else? Any questions of Mary? I know we funded other departments in town for doing this in the past. So
I think George may have some additional questions.
George?
Hi, Mary. I'm with the Historic Commission, and on page 2, the project work plan and timeline is a little thin, and was wondering if you would be able to, because it would help me and help the committee to see how this breaks down into phases. Just intuitively, I would think that phase 1 will be the development of the process and the project, and get that rolled out and implemented, and get going, scanning current documents, and then set up phase 2, which would be then to, scan all of the old documents. So clearly it would be helpful to see how that breaks out and what the cost components are of those. It might be 3 phases, but wanted to throw that out.
Sure, that's certainly something I can take a look at and try to beef up for you. I will admit freely that I put in this application in the middle of election season on a 24-hour notice. So yep. It is admittedly thin at that point. And I do think you're right. I think the first part really is identifying everything that is presently in the storage that needs to be scanned and indexed. The second piece is how that index needs to be kind of set up for both the electronic documents and then for the paper records. And then to your point, the third part is scanning them. The fourth is really on an as going forward basis, both for storage and for destruction. So in a past project that I was when I was in the clerk's office in Harwich, we had gone through a similar project that didn't have the scanning component, but what it did have is kind of identifying all the documents in the individual boxes with destruction schedules, so that each department could identify what documents were in a box, and also when those documents were no longer necessary to be held onto. So, finance may have some documents that have a 2-year destruction schedule. They might have a 7-year destruction schedule, and they also have permanent records. So, of course, from a historic perspective, the permanent record is the highest on the list, but they all need to be stored for, at a minimum, their minimum destruction schedule period. So you know, I do think you're right as far as the 4 stages are concerned. In looking at the volumes of documents that the 2 vendors identified, you know, they were basing their quotes on about 3.5 million pages. So that's a large volume that they were identifying as taking, you know, a good 52 weeks. So that's kind of why I'm saying probably more along the lines of 1.5 years once the funding is realized, so that we can kind of do that initial prep before the scanning. And because that scanning alone is going to take, I think, a good solid year.
Great. Clearly you get it. The town's has the benefit of you having done this before, so you're not recreating the wheel to a certain degree, and that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any more questions for Mary? No. Thanks for coming and explaining it. Obviously, Mary, you seem to have a good grasp of this project and what you're going to do. And as with everything else in the town, wish you had more time when they ask you to prepare an application to us. It's not your fault. It's always done last minute. But George had a couple of good comments about breaking this down about what we might expect in the future. I think that would be important for us. And other than that, I don't have any other questions unless anybody else does.
Thank you, Mary.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I will get some kind of timelines to you within the next few days.
Great.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much for your time today. Have a good afternoon.
You too.
Pat is here. Pat, unmute her.
I'm unmuted. Okay, there she is. I'm unmuted. Okay. Karen's taking care of me today.
Good.
I'm in her office because my town issued computer didn't like you. My phone liked you, but my town computer didn't. So anyway, good afternoon.
How are you?
Good afternoon.
I'm well, thank you.
We're all ready for you, Pat. So whenever you want to go ahead and describe the sign project, feel free to start. And then if we have any questions, we'll let you know.
Marie, did page 4 get sent as an addendum?
Yes, I have it.
Thank you.
Well,
Everybody else get the addendum today?
that's what it looks like.
There we go.
There it is.
So in 2018, the CPA committee very generously approved 2 new signs for the cemeteries here in Yarmouth, the first time that we've had signs at the cemeteries in many, many years. And so we were able to put a sign at the ancient cemetery, as well as a new sign at the Woodside West Yarmouth Cemetery. You know, many towns, as I went through, had signage, and Yarmouth hasn't any signage in many of our 9 active cemeteries. So I thought it was an important project. Since that time, my role has changed, and I no longer oversee the cemetery division, but with the one-man show who's doing the work over there, I wanted to continue on this project in support of moving forward with more signage at the cemeteries. We get a lot of calls about family burials at Methodist Cemetery or Baptist. Many people don't know which is which. The little one next to the entrance to Bass River Golf Course is actually Georgetown, which is on the request list for this, along with Pine Grove, because those are 2 of the more active cemeteries and that we're still doing burials in. So I'm following up and on a project that we started a few years back. I'm also going to the same vendor who was good enough to give us a quote that would keep us under the $10,000. We've got a contingency in there, and we feel that our cemeteries are not only sacred but historic, and it's important that we be able to direct people there who are doing genealogy or just letting our community know which is which, and there's a history behind each one. You know, why is Georgetown has its own cemetery in that section of town, and it's not even called Georgetown Heights anymore, and that sort of thing. So we're moving forward, working along with a group that we started that you also fund, which is the Cemetery Preservation Group, who are cleaning gravestones. They've started in Ancient and are doing an excellent job. Laurel and
Melanie.
Who am I forgetting, George?
Melanie,
thank you. Melanie Barron, great work. And so this just complements the work they're already doing.
Hey, thanks, Pat. Just these signs are going to look like the ones you already have, correct?
Identical. What we did is we designed the signs. Be historically appropriate so that they would be acceptable in the Old Kings Highway district of the town. And we used that as our model so that now all of them will be identical as a historical piece, again, through as approved through Old Kings Highway.
Look great. Anybody have any questions of Pat?
Yeah.
George?
Paul had his hand up first. Go, Paul.
It's okay. No, I just thought I noticed there's only one quote. I don't know, maybe there's not too many sign companies around. But Pat, could you comment on that a little bit? Is it possible to get more than one? You bring it before a town meeting, and people might want to see more than one quote on that.
Yeah, when we looked at this, we were trying to be able to do it in best business practices. Because the setup is such, we could keep the cost low through fancy signs out of Orleans. And the materials that they use at the fancy signs is a synthetic wood. It's all hand carved and painted with historic colors. I went to a sign maker in Sandwich, and they were much more expensive. And I knew that they already had our design, our colors, and everything set. So I felt that we could move quickly and we would get a product that we've seen. All we have to do with the signs that are presently erected is put a little car wax on them every year. We wash them down and we wax them. And that keeps the colors bright and keeps the signs going. If you would like me to get a couple of quotes, I certainly would, Mr. Higgins. Or Huggins, what am I mean, Higgins? Sorry, Paul.
That's okay. No, I mean, I just thought maybe it would be, you know, would be appropriate to show that you did some shopping around, that's all.
Pat, correct me if, but when you first started this, didn't you do that? Didn't we ask you to?
I did, and I had the Sandwich Group, and then I couldn't find anyone else that would do like a hand carved sign using this synthetic wood. They all wanted to do it on regular wood.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
They're not going to last
so
the way that these would.
Just keeping that in mind, I think it's really important that they all be the same. So I have nothing against getting other quotes, but they'd have to be exactly the same as the ones you've already done. Keep them uniform. Anybody else have? Anybody else any questions?
George.
Hi, Pat.
Hey, George.
Pat, just a quick question on the creation of the sign. Yeah, where we're not recreating the wheel, is the development cost for these less than it would have been for the first sign?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They've already got it laid out in a way that, you know, the shape of the sign itself, the line across the town of Yarmouth, the circle with the 4-letter dates there. So that's already set within their system. So all they have to do is slide the date in and then make the sign work. And as you can see, Don Marie, if you would kind of go between the two, take a look at Georgetown and kind of the size of those letters as they look at it, and then look at Pine Grove, which are equal to or even a little greater. So the only change is fitting the first name of the cemetery right on that top line. And then on the top, what you're not seeing is, as I'm pointing at my screen like that makes a whole lot of sense. In the middle of the top, you'll see a beautiful colored seal of the town of Yarmouth. That's a part of the sign as well. It just wasn't put in here. Yeah, so right there's a lovely colored sign of the crest, the town seal. It's very nice.
Right. So by going back to the sign maker, these signs are much more reasonable because there's less development cost and all of that. So
yeah, you would think it after 3 years, George, they'd be more extensive, and they're
exactly. Not. Yep. Thank you.
One other question, Gary?
Yep, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, I think they're really nice looking signs. You know, don't get me wrong about that. The question, what about the post? Is that wooden or is it a synthetic material or what is it?
It is synthetic as well. It's not, the information isn't on here. It comes as a part, and we actually do the install ourselves here in town. The DPW does the installs. That's the $1,500 per sign contribution to the, on page 4, you'll see that 15 and 15 is for the installation, and they're a painted white plastic. Go back again.
Here?
There, yard arm posts. No, sorry, just down a little farther, please. There, yard arm. The yard arm posts are 8 feet out of the ground, painted white, and so that they are the plastic painted white. Yes.
Okay, and you bring up one other thing that I didn't realize. So the installation is $1,500, but it's done by the people in town?
Well, it's done by the DPW. So that's what we looked at. The digging of the hole, the setting of the cement, the setting of the sign, the 2 men, and the hours that they worked, and we figured at that cost it would be $15, and that was the quote that the company gave to install that sign was $15. So we have 2 choices. If DPW doesn't have the time to do it, they will pay to have the install outside of this charge, so that we're not having the company, and then the company would be responsible if somebody with a plow hit it, then it would be something that they would replace. So there's that option available, but if we don't have the money, then they will install it themselves.
Okay, so just help me to understand.
It's
so
the material.
Goes to the DPW?
Well, no. It's an in-kind contribution, in-kind hours. No money would come from X to Y. We just figured that by those installs. Also,
yeah, okay, I see. You're asking for $10,000 for the signs. And then the other is just.
And I'm asking for the sign and the yard arm that hangs off of the bottom, but the actual materials for the post to hang it is not a part of the quote for the signs themselves. That we will buy.
Okay, I see. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Any questions for Pat?
George.
Yes. No, I'm good.
Debbie, did you want to say something to me?
Yes, Pat. I just want to know is there any other cemeteries that fall under that to have signs put up or need signs?
There's one on the corner of Old Main Street and Wood Road that's called Methodist Cemetery.
Yep.
There's one on Willow Street in behind the ERA Realty on 28, and that is Baptist Cemetery. They'll still be needing signage. We can't do anyone at Chandler Gray because it's not historic. It's not old enough to fit under the historic, so we can't change the Chandler Gray, but there's a very big rock there that's a really nice entrance at the entrance point. So there's that, but there's those 2 as many, and that gives us the 7. And then any of the really small cemeteries that are smallpox cemeteries or historic Confederate cemeteries and the like aren't really large enough for, I think the sign would be bigger than the space for the graves that we discovered.
So in the future, are we going to get signs for those?
We do too. You know, it takes almost 6 months for them to hand carve and create one sign.
Wow.
Because one artist with those tools works on that, and that's what they do. They do the carved signs on the plastic wood.
Well, can I tell you, they do a very good job, and I think everybody in town are going to appreciate that, and the loved ones who have lost their family, I think are going to enjoy those nice signs.
This is really a personal request that I didn't want to see this end without it being completed.
Nice job. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks for coming here. Did a great job with the sign so far, and hopefully we can keep it going.
Thank you all. And again, sorry for the computer hassle, but thank Karen. She took good care of me. Thanks.
Thanks, Pat.
Pat.
No, I'm going to stop my video.
Trying for the town to get all new computers. All right. Don, next on the agenda, you have on here the review of the articles that were postponed from the town meeting that didn't happen. So I guess, what are we supposed to do with those? They're still on the agenda except for the church, and I think we could withdraw the church because we're not going to have the info that we need, correct?
Right. Oh, let me stop sharing that.
I think we saw that, or at least I saw the letter. I assume everybody got it, the letter from Kathy Williams about the Riverwalk Park.
Right. I just wanted to kind of make sure we close the loop on these 4 that were still outstanding. And I think, and also bring Debbie up to speed a little bit on what's happened. The South Yarmouth Methodist Church had submitted an application that just needs to be worked on a little bit more with more detail. So they're kind of on hold until we get, or actually until the Yarmouth Historic Commission gets the information that they need in order to recommend the project. So that won't be going up at the next town meeting. Beyond that is the Riverwalk Park, which was actually right from the get-go was kind of tabled for the year. That wasn't ever up for consideration in the fall town meeting. And then Kathy sent out the memo. Did everybody get my email or get a hard copy, Christine?
Yeah.
I printed it out, yeah.
So that's the status of the Riverwalk Park. Let's see. Anybody wants to look at it or talk about it?
Don't have any questions.
So,
if anything's changed, they just want to proceed. So.
Yep. So that'll be up for consideration next week if we start the voting then. Sandy Pond Phase 1 is a little bit trickier because it's had some different iterations, and we were waiting to hear something a little, I think, more formalized from the Rec Commission, and now we have a representative from the Rec Commission.
Here, here.
Oh, let me unmute you, Debbie, or you unmute yourself. You know, can you find the mute button on the bottom left?
There we go.
That's good. Yep.
Yeah. All right. I have some paperwork that one of the commissioners was very nice to get together for me. I think our concern was, first of all, the splash pad. We put that before Jeff Colby came on and Recreation had the parks. We put that on the back burner because we just didn't feel like there was really a need for that. You're only going to use it 2, maybe 3 months out of the whole year. And the water, the supervision, you know, they say mosquitoes and triple E, and we have a water park up the street. And so my concern is I've been pushing very hard for a handicap playground. And what I'm talking about is, like, we have a lot of children, young adults, and even adults that can't get to a playground that is handicap accessible. So my idea is to grab like a lift that you put the wheelchair into, and then they can swing, and other apparatuses also, because I don't think people in town realize how many kids we have under the spectrum as far as, you know, autism, Asperger's, Rett syndrome. I can go on. There's an awful lot of people. And I went after this quite a few years ago, and it just didn't come up. There was more important things, I guess. And so we have more pros for the playground, because you can use the playground 10, 11, 12 months maybe. And to me, how are you going to put a handicapped children in a splash pad that someone's going to, you know, bump into them, or they're going to get anxiety, or, you know, there's a lot of aspects to it. And I told them once I left the Rec Commission, which I don't have any plans right now, I've been on 35 years, and this is going to be my last ditch to get this going. And Sandy Pond is like the local, you know, it's like in the middle of the town. Everybody has access to it because it's on Buck Island Road, and there's plenty of stuff going on there. You know, the dog park, men's softball, pickleball. So I would just like to add that on. We have some at Homer Park, but it's not really, I don't think, handicap. We have some stuff.
Homer Park and the one on 6A in Yarmouthport, CPA funded money to put handicap equipment there on both of those.
Yeah.
So as far as what you want to do with that, first of all, you just can't take the money that's already been asked for the splash pad and reappropriate it. It needs to be a separate application made out asking for handicap playgrounds, the equipment with the breakdown. Pat did it before, and she did a great job with it, and all the bases and all that. It's got to be a separate application. So how we handle the splash pad, it's already up. It's on the application and will be coming before town meeting. So the only option you would have is to vote that down and then come in with a separate application for the handicap playgrounds.
Yeah, that sounds all right. We didn't know the splash pad was a go. Recreation never knew about it.
I find that shocking, but I believe you.
Yeah, no, really, because we put it in the back burner and to hold off on that. And a couple of people just felt they wanted a splash pad. And I think there's going to be more, there's more cons to the splash pad than I think a lot of people realize. But I mean, I will do that. I have a meeting tonight at 6.
Historically, and maybe Karen, you could help me with this. I believe we approved money for a splash pad that was going to go at the playground down by the beach. And then Pat wanted to move it to Sandy Pond. And I said we had to withdraw it and you had to reapply again. You just can't take the money and move it. So do you remember that, Karen?
I don't recall that expressly, but I did want to share with you just a little update from Jeff Colby, who wasn't able to join the meeting today. But I'm looking for my email from Jeff, because I asked Jeff, kind of thinking about all of this, the splash pad and the accessible playground, and the original request that came in, whenever it was that it came in last year. Jeff has asked CDM Smith for an updated figure that includes everything. So that I think that Jeff was thinking, and maybe we all need to get on one page to make one request for both the splash pad and the handicap accessible playground, if that makes sense.
My point is the splash pad is already on will be on the warrant for the spring already.
I had asked him, let me see what I asked him.
Although a few of us weren't really happy with it, we felt it should go to town meeting, and we changed our vote to allow it to go to town meeting. Although I personally wasn't in favor of it, and that gave me the right at town meeting. I could vote against it.
Yeah, I think that our conversation, Jeff and I, was, you know, when we were heading into this past special town meeting, we reached out to the folks who had applications postponed, and we asked them, you know, do you need the money sooner rather than later? The comment, you know, we were aware that the selectmen had the splash pad on their list of goals. So the idea was to prioritize that portion of the application. Now that we have more time to prepare and going into the annual town meeting, the question was, well, what do you want to do? And I think Jeff's suggestion was, you know, revise the application to include both components.
Gary, would that require it having to come back to us, correct? And I don't feel comfortable having any types of amendments, especially if Rec Commission hasn't even reviewed or taken it hasn't been presented in front of them.
I don't either. We need to do this right, and that's what I was asking Karen about it. I tell you before, if you talk with Pat, she had money for the splash pad going to the playground down by the beach, and then she decided they didn't want to have it there. They wanted to move it to Sandy Pond. And I go, you just can't move it to Sandy Pond. It's got to go back to town meeting. I am sure that's the way it went. So that splash pad goes way back to when Jennifer was here. And
I think you're right. It's coming back to me.
I know it. I know I'm right.
Right.
Because I remember
You're always right, Gary. You're always right.
I was the one always telling you it's got to go back to town meeting, Karen. They just can't take the money and move it. So it's getting back to what Liz says. No, we just can't amend it and do it. I think it has to come in as a new application.
Yep, I agree.
We only looked at what was presented, so we
don't understand
have any support over that. You know.
Yeah. Okay, I will let Mr. Colby know. And so you're going to keep the splash pad on the warrant?
Well, if
I'm sorry, I was not paying full attention.
Yeah, if Jeff wants to take it off, he can take it off. But I understand, you know.
Well, I think it's an administration article.
Excuse me?
I said I think that it's maybe not just up to Mr. Colby.
I know it's not. That's what I'm getting at. I'm trying to be tactful about this. I know it's not him. But he's the one who applied for it. So he is the one who would have to withdraw it. Christine?
Yeah, that was my original question is if Recreation wanted a handicap park, why didn't they file an application for it? You know, so they have to file an application this year. You know, it'll be another whole year, you know.
I didn't know about the application, and I'm willing to go back to the board tonight and let them know what we need. I mean, I'm new to all this, but I mean, this is very personal, and it's personal for a lot of people in town that would absolutely love this. So I will do what I have to do, and I'll get the chairman, because she was on your committee before, Dorcas, and I'll ask her exactly what we need and everything else, and just present it to you. Because I'm trying to get a lot of people at the spring meeting, a lot of handicapped people that'll end up voting it down.
I don't think you can get it to the spring town meeting.
Well, you'd be filing an application next September.
Yeah,
has nothing to do with the spring meeting. You know, the handicap park.
Yeah, my thing is for the spring meeting. Hopefully people will vote down the splash pad. I just don't think there's really any need for a splash pad. It just, like I said, you only use it 2 or 3 months.
Well,
and who's going to get use out of it?
That's fine. You can certainly do that, and it can get voted down. I will tell you, just because it gets voted down, that doesn't mean the money can get redirected to the handicapped, although, you know, I think the handicapped good idea, and I'd like to see you come forward with an application for that.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Well, you've
I
got
agree.
one of the selectmen is really pushing the splash pad.
I know who it is.
Yeah. It's on all
she's
the.
A friend of mine. She's a friend of mine. She goes, and why can't we have both? And I went, I guess we could. I said, this is something, but the whole thing is we put the splash pad in the back burner. We didn't want to bring it up yet.
But the selectmen made it a priority.
Yeah. I don't think all of them really did. But
Carol?
That's okay.
Yeah, can I follow up with a question? I'm going back through my email correspondence with Jeff. And with you guys meeting next week, we may be able to provide a better update. But what I'm wondering is the original application that came in prior to the annual town meeting. So it would have been the application that you reviewed 1 year ago in the fall regular evaluation. The application included funding for the splash pad and parking area and driveway improvements. And that was all part of the original application that I think you all have.
Yeah, we knew about that, and we put it in the back burner as far as the rec commission, and all of a sudden we see it's on the agenda. I'm going, what? So I'll have to talk to the board tonight and get some, I mean, like I said, we brought up a splash pad a long time ago, and people said no. We sat down, did the pros and the cons, and the cons did not, they had it for the splash pad. No way. You know, you're talking injuries like in Bourne and water safety and supervision and cleanup. This ain't any standing water. You're not going to get every standing water cleaned up and no mosquitoes. I just find that hard to believe. But I mean, I'll do what I have to do. I'll talk to the board tonight, and I'll let them know about the application that we have to fill out, and go from there.
Any more discussion about this?
I believe George had his hand up for a while.
Go ahead, George.
A couple of points. Debbie, one of the things that we had asked for was for folks that thought they'd want to apply for more money is to submit a letter of intent. I would suggest that you have that opportunity to do that now so that it's on the radar, and because things are not closed. Point two, I just want to clarify that yes, we voted to move Sandy Pond along only to get it to a position where we would have another bite at the apple. And that was when we vote projects out. And as people recall, and other people said this also, is how do we make a decision on this project without having a representative from the recreation department here, so that they can be part of the discussion. So, and Debbie's here. So next week when we get together to vote on projects, everybody will have the opportunity to vote yay, nay, or abstain.
Okay. So you're telling me I need a letter of intent.
Yes, and Dawn can send you, there's a format, it's very simple. You know, I would suggest, Dawn, if you could send that to Debbie so that she can show it to the committee tonight where they're meeting. It's, you know, so that they have that form.
Debbie, should we also send that to Amy? Would Amy get that?
You know, it's, you can, but Amy's like, now that Jeff has a hold on that, she was just not really, and Ruth Nee said the same thing, not really a lot we can do. I said, are you kidding me? I said, they're all part of recreation. Whether Jeff took it over or not, it's still recreation. You know, So yeah, you can send it to Amy. Maybe Amy
I just meant so that she could share it with the committee tonight.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Karen, very much.
Oh, you have questions?
Yeah, a couple things. I think I'm agreeing with you, Gary, in terms of this, but correct me or help me out if I'm wrong. The application that's currently on the books for the splash pad has already been approved to go forward to town meeting by this committee. Isn't that correct?
That's what I was trying to say. Yes.
Yeah. And so
that's already going forward.
So that would go forward, and that would either be voted for or against a town meeting. That what Debbie is talking about is a new application that the rec department would make for the handicap playground. One doesn't necessarily negate the other. It's conceivable that the splash pad could pass, and then the handicap could pass as well, or either one could fail. My other question is, I just need to be reminded, who were the authors of the splash pad application? Was it Jeff Colby? I'm forgetting now.
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
It was Jeff Colby.
Yeah, okay, all right. So he had every right to bring that forward, to have us consider it, to have town meeting consider it if it did go forward. And now Debbie has, through the Recreation Department, might have some ideas for a new application. Does that summarize it?
For me, I think you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, I'm just having trouble hearing you, Gary, but thank you.
They gave me a crappy computer. I don't even know what the microphone is.
It's better than Pat's.
They'll have an application for it.
But you're right. You're right, Paul. Exactly what you said is how I interpret where we are now. Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
So I stand corrected.
So I need the letter and I need an application.
Yeah, I would do the letter now, as George said.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then you'll have time to prepare your application for the next deadline, which would be the next town meeting would be in September.
Oh, it's going to be in September? I thought it was April, but that's good.
No, that's April. We have 2 a year now. Thanks to the wisdom of the selectmen. We need 2 a year. When last town meeting, we had, what, 6 articles?
Yeah, that's it.
That helps attendance. Okay.
Yes.
Any more questions or comments? Does everybody understand where we stand with this? And the church, we know is not going to be ready. And I think that's all we have on the playhouse is going forward in April.
Yep.
And they've given us all the backup information we've asked for on that. And the Riverwalk Park. So that's all the articles that were postponed. They were on the agenda for the fall town meeting that got shortened. Okay. I guess next we got the important dates, John, if you want to just those. Obviously our next meeting would be an important meeting.
So if we can get through the votes, obviously there's going to be discussion probably about conditions that may apply to the grant. So hopefully we can get through the whole thing.
Long time to make it quicker. Just in the past, Don, what we've done is voted them, and then we do conditions after the fact. So if you support it, that's fine. We can always add the conditions, but I don't suggest in the voting round that we get into the conditions.
Okay, good plan. Because if you look at the rest of the calendar, December is, I don't know if anybody would be interested in having a meeting on December 23rd or 30th, but then the warrant articles are due to the Board of Selectmen on January 5th. So that's the timeline. And the warrant closes at the end of January, so.
I don't know if it's an email or a text we got from, who was it, Rec or Historic today about can we hold off on our votes to January 13th? The answer is no. So I don't know where that was coming from, but if anybody asks you, that's not an option.
What's this? I'm
There's
not
an email
following.
or a text from somebody this afternoon that I got asking if we could hold off on our votes to January 13th.
From the Historic Commission?
Like historic or rec?
Not rec.
Well,
Had to be historic.
Probably
Well,
historic then.
from
I don't have my computer with me, but I got it. Dawn, you must have seen it.
Yeah, I don't have access to my email at the moment, but the
It was just today.
answer is right, no, because that's past the deadline. So so that's the next month or so, month and a half of Wednesdays.
I know we're not going to get through all of these next meeting.
So you prefer the 23rd or the 30th?
Anybody else?
I'm good with both dates. It doesn't matter. I've done all my Christmas shopping. I'm all set.
I'm good.
I'm good.
whatever.
George's whatever.
Either dates are fine for me.
And either for me.
I mean, I would suggest just for consistency to go ahead with the 23rd then.
Well, we can always set them as meeting dates and postpone them.
Right. Okay, we'll keep voting and discussing.
Okay, I don't think we need to do any staff updates or committee updates today. We've done enough. There's some minutes in the packet. I don't know if we could possibly can hear a vote to.
Gary, I just want to say one thing. I do want to do one additional plug for committees. We have our third and final visioning for the planning board and for the town that is scheduled for next Tuesday at 2 o'clock. It is a sign-in only, so pre-registration is available on the town's website. There is a link on the main page where you click in. It gives you all the information regarding the visioning, the SWOT analysis, all the projects that we've done, the town's done over the years. And it's been really a wonderful process. We've had excellent attendance, really, to give us a good initial sense of where the community is really focused on. And it's really broad, just broad for generations, broad for backgrounds, broad for everything. And it's been wonderful. So again, next Tuesday, 2 o'clock, please pre-register though. I do encourage all of you guys to attend because you get to see various people in our community of, again, like I said, all various aspects and components of our community is represented. So 2 o'clock Tuesday. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Liz. You're doing a great job with that. I think it's a great idea, great concept. And I think some good stuff will come out of it. So lastly, back to the minutes. We have the first one is from July 8th. And this was our site visit. So
I make a motion that we accept the minutes of July 8th.
By Paul, second.
Second.
Second by Christine. Okay, roll call. Gary, I was there. I'm in favor. Paul?
Aye.
Nate?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
And Tom Kelly is not here. So accept those minutes with no amendments. The next ones are for November 4th. Anybody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion again to accept the minutes from November 4th.
I'll second.
Seconded by Christine again. Okay, roll call vote. Gary? Aye. George?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Liz?
Aye.
Debbie, you can vote if you want to. I'm fine.
Aye.
Nate? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Those are done. I think we have one more, right?
I think that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Yep. Okay, then that being the case.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn by Christine. Too many people seconded quick. Who was it?
I'll give it to George.
I'll take it.
George. Okay, motion by Christine, seconded by George. Roll call vote. Gary, aye. George?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Liz?
Aye.
Karen? Debbie?
Aye.
Nate?
Aye.
Thank you all. And
Thank you.
I guess
Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thanks,
see you
guys.
next week.
Thanks, Don.
See you next week.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Off to my next meeting.
Have fun.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Hey.